on the Acela test. We're still meeting the AMAO, but we're sort of trying to figure out this data. We're interested in knowing, we really have a very robust ELD 4-hour model, so we actually don't know why we see a decrease in the progress.
Lynn,
Yes.
can we go back a slide, back to the TS4 observations? When was the T4S implemented?
In 2008.
Okay. And wasn't communicating the objective one of the very first things that was emphasized? I'm just kind of surprised at the data and how has it changed since its implementation?
I'm not sure how to answer that. It hasn't changed. We do expect to see that when we enter the classroom, that the teacher does communicate the standard, and then there's 3 other indicators. Let me ask my principal friends, is that an all or an any?
It's an all.
It's an all. Okay, so we actually have to see, right, the 3 indicators for this, and it could be that our principals are now very refined on their observations, and they really don't mark this unless they see all 3 indicators in that 10-minute visit in the classroom. I'm sorry.
I guess if the principals could answer another question for me, how have you seen the results of the classroom observation data change since its implementation in 2008?
I think for myself, speaking for Monte Vista, we were all saying it's all, you've got to see all these things. Well, I know at Monte Vista we took a dip when I learned more in the early onset because I was mismarking some things, early on because my understanding was not where it should be. And so when I learned, it turned out to be a little dip. But at the same time, it's still a challenge for our teachers. I think one of the indicators is that the teacher refers to it's one thing to state it at the beginning. Everybody, I would say 100% of Monte Vista teachers do it at the beginning. It's posted, and then the problem, it's not a problem, it's a way teachers get into their rhythm of how they teach, but to refer back to that objective in the lesson when I am there. And if I were to say at Monte Vista what piece makes it not be 100%, it's that indicator. They've got it posted, it's aligned with what their content is. We're working to make it more rigorous, because you can have an objective, but you now want to make it more rigorous. The verb that you choose needs to be very explicit. In the early days, I might have given a teacher credit for saying they will identify the noun in a sentence. Now I wouldn't give credit for that. They need to underline, they need to write, they need to highlight the noun in a sentence. So I think that whole progression that I'm talking about should explain some of it. But really, I think right now, as it is today, it's just that ability to refer back to it during the time I'm there. And I don't appreciate my teachers when they walk in and go, okay, Mr. Madison's here. What's our objective today? Trying to, that's not what we're after either. We want it embedded. We want it to be functional and practical.
Having taught for only 4 months, I know that was hard. I had a hard time doing that. Thank you.
Okay, so we talked about Acela progress. Our reclassification rate did increase from 31% for the district to 34% overall. The majority of our students are in the kinder, first, second, and third grade area. I guess fourth grade could be included also. So we're happy to see the reclassification rate to go up. We're looking forward to refining our 4-hour ELD program this year, so we do expect the same score. These scores are higher for next year. Any question about Acela reclassification? Discipline is one of our goals for the district plan. All students will be educated in learning environments that are safe, drug-free, and conducive to learning. One of the pieces of data we collect are just numbers of infractions of students in the district. And so we see that we have a positive trend of reducing the number of infractions over time. We're really looking forward to our implementation of Tier 1 positive behavior intervention systems for this year. So we actually expect to see a drop in infractions for this year. So we're looking forward to that data.
I have another question.
Oh, yes.
How much of the positive trend in the decreasing number of infractions is due to what is happening within the district as opposed to what's happening in the community?
Well, I can't track that, but I can say that I didn't use the slide that shows me percent of student enrolled, so I actually see, even based on numbers of students, that we have a decreasing percent of infractions by student population. So the chart looks exactly the same, so I apologize for not having put that one in. So I know it's not just because we have decreased numbers of students in the district. Yes, David?
Actually, to me, I also connect this data to the CT4S data we were looking at previously, and I don't have rock solid data for this, but I'd be curious if my colleagues have found the same. As we really move towards the WestEd model of student engagement and what that looks like, and really began training our teachers and holding them accountable for engaging all students at the same time, much more than they are calling on individual students. Certainly on my campus, I noticed just an almost immediate decrease in just the number of day-to-day disciplinary challenges that teachers were having, because as we all know, kids who are bored tend to find things to do. As teachers became very adept at engaging all kids at the same time, I remember back in the initial days of the WestEd partnership, Huck saying, your kids should go home exhausted at the end of the day, and I think they do, as well as our staff, much more than perhaps our students had previously, and as a result, they sometimes just have a little less time to get into mischief.
Tiffany and I would concur with that very much so. Looking at the economic challenges within the community over the last 3 to 4 years, we've certainly seen, and again, I don't have rock solid evidence other than what walks through the front door, the numbers of issues, the numbers of families in crisis, the types of crises that are present at school are certainly increasing. Even while the numbers of individual students may be in decline. Those kinds of problems, children dealing with hunger, children dealing with changes in their home circumstance, moving frequently, moving back in with multiple families, etc., can lead to increased problems with discipline. So the fact that despite, or at the simultaneous to, significant struggles within the community, we're seeing those kinds of declines in large-scale discipline, I think is a testament to the kinds of instruction that are happening in the classroom.
Coming from the AP position and dealing a lot with discipline over at MAC and last year, I'd like to say that working with Dr. Bogner, working with the other APs, understanding level 1 infractions, understanding level 2 infractions, helped out a lot, especially providing that professional development to our teachers. Again, teachers are doing a great job out there when it comes to understanding the difference between level 1 and level 2 infractions. So when you see this data right here, it supports that the professional development that we are receiving here in the district is making sure that they can differentiate when it comes to level 1 and level 2, that you'll continue to see a decline in those infractions.
It kind of goes to a reculturalization of 3 areas. The CT4S, like Damon talked about, the RTI behavior that James has talked about, and then the RTI that we're doing with students that are Tier 1 and Tier 2 and Tier 3 students, and giving them specific lessons that support them at their base need. You've seen a lot of those, like Damon had talked about, a lot of those students who were acting up because of discipline issues or just they didn't know what to do in the classroom, now starting to feel more successful in the classroom. But then all 3 of those things together kind of fit under the umbrella of not only reculturalizing the school, but the students also. So we started with the teachers, and then we started working with the administration too, and then now the students are taking that on themselves. So start to see students start to take up this piece and say, that's not the way we behave at this school, is really when the flywheel starts turning more.
I think my question was kind of along the same lines, and it's what Mr. Munoz brought up, was that in terms of identifying what's a tier 1 or a tier 2 in terms of the behavioral interventions, which I don't think this is all, these are different infractions that could be a tier 1 or tier 2 or any tier, could it not?
These are actually infractions that resulted in suspensions.
Okay, so that's obviously not the,
It would be considered a level 2 or tier 2, tier 3, level 2. So, because the only time that a student would receive a referral is for a level 2, not level 1. Level 1 is considered a classroom management. That's under tier 1.
so these, okay. The next question, whenever I see data over the years, I tend to wonder, are we comparing apples to apples? And with the T4S, there's certainly, well, there have been some changes. As Mr. Madison pointed out, things that, when I first started 3 years ago, I might have said, okay, that cuts it, now it doesn't. My question is, with discipline, is any of this positive trend due to changes, or are any of these trends due to changes in how we perceive things? Again, what's a level 1, what's a level 2? Is it, how we react? Are we just suspending kids less as we realize that, maybe that's not the best thing, since these kids are not going to be learning when they're at home, and yet they're still going to be showing up on our AIMS scores unless they leave the school before AIMS?
I'd just like to say that one of the things to counter that theory of different standards, one of the things we're doing this year is we've added the behavior component to the CT4S, so that as we look at classrooms to see how things are going, everything from transitions can be going from your math to your social studies book, to having that high expectations and consistent behavior, to the teachers responding without sarcasm or inappropriate reaction. But in my years here at Creighton, the one thing that Dr. Bogner has been involved with my decision making when I was an AP for all those years, and one of the things that there isn't a whole lot of gray. There's always gray, but not as much with suspensions. Usually suspensions, you have crossed a line that the various schools are pretty consistent with. Now, discipline that you do in the lower tiers, there's a lot of flexibility, creativity on AP's parts, on the teachers' handling and so forth. But when you get up there into the suspension mode, usually it is a pretty serious. I don't believe in all my years here suspension has ever been taken lightly, and I think that that's true today as it was 10 or 15 years ago. It's never taken lightly. It's the last resort. It's a deal where, in many cases it's a buildup of things, but also it's that singular incident that puts you over the line. So I don't think so, but to make you more sure that we're really looking at it all different ways, all the principals and APs really wanted to put that into the CT4S. So when we go into a classroom this year, we are monitoring a behavioral aspect that we've never even monitored before, which might add for your data in the future.
The last goal, we have 5 goals in the Creighton strategic plan, and it talks about high school data. We'd like to have 100% of our students completing grade 8, enroll and complete grade 9. We actually don't have control of this data. I just send our SACE ID numbers